Assalamu alaikum. I see you. I see you. Thanks, guys.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
How are you? I was
Good,
hoping
how
to
are
do
you?
this on the computer, but it didn't work out. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. I'm so glad you're here. Sorry about the
Alhamdulillah.
technical issues that we had a minute ago.
Oh,
Let me introduce you again. So, Iman Saima is a clinical social worker who provides a range of social services, social work services, including treatment for mental illnesses through individual, couple, and group therapy. And prior to this, you were in the education field and you worked in public and private school and was a school principal for the past 15 years. And currently serving at the Georgetown University as a residential minister and providing your role is basically in guidance to the students and processing their struggles and achieving their goals. And before we start, how cold is it there?
let's just say I don't have enough layers. Coming from Orange County, alhamdulillah. It's not that
Exactly.
bad. Today is okay.
Exactly.
I think 40 something.
Okay,
But
that's not
alhamdulillah,
bad.
you get used to it. The change of
Yeah,
seasons is really nice. But thank you for
yeah,
having me on your show. May Allah put ease and blessings in everyone's path, whoever is watching and will be watching.
yes.
And thank you for the invitation. Jazakallah khair.
Welcome. So first thing I want to ask, I feel like the word trauma is everywhere. So what is trauma? What
Yes.
is the definition, and like what would something that's trauma related actually be?
Very good. So before we start, as I always like to say before I talk about any topic of mental health, this is not an opportunity for anyone to diagnose oneself. This is not an opportunity for anyone to feel bad about themselves. We are
Yes.
not broken projects walking around on this planet. We are people who are trying their best. We are people who have been given certain cards in this world. We've been dealt with certain cards. Allah has the best plan for all of us. And we get to work with what we have. And our journey is unique to each and every one of us. It looks different. It looks different from the outside. It looks different from the inside. And it feels different. Even if you have a twin sister or brother, their
Yes.
experience and journey will be completely different. So this topic today is not to, it's not to have somebody think that, oh my God, this is resonating with me. I'm like this. I'm like this. Oh my gosh, I'm like,
Something's
there's
wrong
no
with
hope.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an awareness. This is just
Yeah.
to build on what you already have. You already have a lot of tools. Each and every one of us, subhanAllah, we have an innate tool. We get to access it. We get to go inward, and we get to see new tools that we could learn from outside. So what is trauma? So trauma itself is an emotional response to a terrible event like accident, rape, war, natural disaster, something that had happened. Divorce falls under trauma. Growing up in a household that negativity was the way that the child was dealt with. Abuse, domestic violence, not being heard, not being seen, not being loved could be trauma. So trauma could have so many topics under it. But what it is the way we individually respond to what had happened. And as I said earlier, you could have your twin brother or sister, they could respond differently. So sometimes as children, we don't have the tools, nor do we have the care, the proper care, to deal with those events. So we end up getting stuck in these responses as adults.
So it could be,
trauma
are you
is
saying,
lonely.
yeah, so you're saying it could be something big, like life-changing, altering, or it could be something seemingly small, but it's just how we respond to it. So, and every person responds differently, right? Some people
Absolutely.
are able to process it or think a certain way, and other people with the same thing happening to them may not respond that way. And I'm just thinking, like with siblings, each
Yes.
person's experience living in their house, growing up in their house, could be different then, right?
And we see it often in families where siblings would say, why are you so stuck there? Come on, move on. So everybody's different. Their responses are different. The coping skills that we learn through our trauma is different. The way it affects us in our personality is different. Our birth order makes a difference also in the way we handle adversities and trauma. So everyone gets to own their unique journey through trauma, through healing their trauma.
So how does it affect us as adults? And that was the main topic that we're going to talk about, is that now that we define trauma, what it is, it could be an array of things. And so I feel like a lot of times, maybe in the past, because I didn't understand that, I kind of maybe judged or, like you said, like, why are you still there, to my siblings or family, other family members, cousins, like, get over it kind of thing. Like, that wasn't a big deal. But to them, it was a big deal.
And that's exactly one of the ways that we can develop coping skills that will shield us from our trauma as adults. We avoid connecting with what had happened. And along the way, we lose compassion and understanding to others, not on purpose, subconsciously.
Yeah.
And if we are in a faith-based household, we tie it to, you got to be grateful. You got to be, God has a plan for us. God chose this. You need to be, showing gratitude. But there is trauma. There's a stuckness. There's a real crisis that's happening. And if we have developed this shield and this, almost like we built a house around ourselves, so we won't be feeling pain again by avoiding everything and being a bit standoffish, we won't be able to see people for what they're going through. Yeah. And we won't be able to hold space for one another. So people will feel judged in our space. People will feel belittled. People will feel ridiculed. People will feel broken in our space.
So say if I did grow up and I had a shield, and sometimes we don't know that we have a shield, we're putting up a shield, it kind of becomes part of who we are, our characteristics that we have. And then we get older, what can we do to know, like, do I even have a shield? Is that a coping mechanism? Or is that, like, for example, I realized later on, like really recently, a couple of years ago, that, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I'm such a people pleaser. And I know that you had talked about this before at another platform, but I'm such a people pleaser. And I dug deeper and deeper and deeper. And it came from me that was my way of getting love. That was my way of coping when I was a child. But so what does it look like in adults, these shields?
I want to acknowledge your transparency and your willingness to share so openly. May Allah reward you, and may it be beneficial for others to push themselves to be more aware of themselves. That's deep awareness. So one of the ways that we could result from trauma that could result in our adulthood, first of all, it will show up in our relationships. Our relationships and friendships, and being a mom and being a dad, and that all gives us feedback 24/7. It's either we want to hear it or we don't want to hear it, right?
Yeah.
Some of the ways that we can be coping with our trauma without actually processing it, we become people pleasers. We become the helpers. We become the fixers. We become the people who narcissism could come from it. Hypersexualization could come from it. Overeating, overspending, oversleeping could come from it. Gossiping could come from it. It's a way that we know that we are not heard, we're not seen, so we're going to create opportunities for us to find importance. Rather than knowing that we are enough, we are loved, we are worthy of being loved, we are worthy of being seen, and we don't need to work towards anything to earn it, especially in households that love had to be earned. You need to have straight A's for me to love you. Yeah. You need to do this. It's good to teach reward. It's good to teach consequences. It's good to teach responsibilities. But at the end of the day, if the experience leaves me feeling less than, and I need to work for your love, I need to earn you, then that will leave me feeling empty from the inside. And most of the moms that I I talk to and spend time with, they get stuck in the doingness. We do a lot, especially moms who choose to be a stay-home mom. They do a lot. They fill up their schedule. We'll do this, we'll do this. And it's all great and it's all beautiful. But if we don't learn to soothe ourselves and sit through things and allow ourselves to be and take time to find times throughout the day where we are just being with ourselves, we won't be able to teach that to our children. We won't be able to teach them to self-soothe. We won't be able to teach them to come home to themselves when they feel anxious. Most of the time, people, when they feel anxiety, they feel like they need to do something outside of them, where they really need to learn to come home to themselves and soothe oneself. When we get stuck in roles that we play, especially cultural roles, you know, we have to do this and we have to be the mediator, we have to be the glue of the family, we have to be the one who rises above, we have to be the one who is the obedient. And it's all great. I want everyone to be a wholesome person. At the end of the day, we are here to worship, and God gave us commands to how to come closer to him and worship him. But the way we go about our everyday lives and the way we connect with people, we need to stop and say, why do I do what I do? Where does it come? Sorry. That's why I didn't want to take this on my phone. It's
no,
going to cut off.
No. So I was thinking that, you know, our kids trigger us. And sometimes that leads us to self-reflection. And I mean, it's supposed to lead us to self-reflection. So when I find out, I'm like, why do I get irritated? Why am I so hung up on you doing your best? And I think one thing that you touched upon is that I don't think any parents say, hey, I don't love you if you don't get straight A's. Nobody says that. They show it, right? So my parents never said that. But I saw the difference. Yeah, I saw the accolades. I saw the reward of getting, I saw how much more hugged I would get. I saw what I would get when I did get good grades. And I saw what other siblings got taken away when they didn't get good grades. So I learned early on, like, oh, you know what? I know how to play this game. Like, I know what I have to do. Like, if I want my parents to be happy with me and say yes or give me this, I know what I have to do. And that was the thing. I shouldn't have to do things, right?
That's right. And that's what we carry on with our relationships with friends, with our loved ones, with our spouses, with our children. We play the role of, I need to do something to earn their love, their attention, their closeness, their trust. And it pushes us to be stuck in the doing rather than knowing that we are enough and we need to just be ourselves.
So as adults, what can we do? Like you said, that we could be more self-aware. We could, and I feel like you touched upon this, that we're so busy. Like I feel like if we're so busy and our schedule is packed, then when do we actually have time to think and reflect? And I talk about this a lot, like having space to think and reflect and not judge ourselves, not at the end of the day think, oh, these are all the bad things that I did. I'm a terrible mom. Not for that, but to be introspective and to just think without any judgment about ourselves, not judge ourselves.
Very true. What can we do? We get to face those things in our relationships that we are putting on the back burner. You know, the pandemic was a divine interventions in every way, shape, or form.
Yes.
We saw divorce rate went up because people all of a sudden are facing one another and facing themselves and facing their children. No hats to put on, nowhere to go, no trips, nothing. And then when courts were closed, it was a funny turning point. And courts were closed. They couldn't get their divorce all settled. So they had to sit with themselves. They had to face each other.
Yeah.
And things started turning around. Now, not in every case, in some cases. The inability to face what we need to face will drive us to live life that we don't want to live. It makes us live life avoiding ourselves and abandoning ourselves. And it leaves us giving the remote control, our emotional remote control, to everyone around us rather than we take control of it. And we know what we need, what we want, how we feel. That's when we start putting more on our plate. Can you do this? Oh, of course I can. When deep inside you're like, I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We forget how to honor our own values, choose from our own principles, find our voice, dictate our needs in a way that, and not label it. You know, sometimes we label it, oh, I don't want to be judgy. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want them to think bad. What do you need? To go back to what do I need? The way we make dua that Allah taught us in the Quran, Allahumma ighfir li wa li waliday wal mu'minina. May Allah forgive me and my parents and the believers. Most of the time we run to the believers, right?
Yeah.
We go, everybody else before us. And you know who's learning? Our kids, our spouses, our in-laws, our friends. And when they start treating us the way we're treating ourselves, we're bitter, we're upset, we hold on to grudges, we don't process the anger. And then we get so distanced from them emotionally, we become frozen. It's a very vicious cycle. And it goes back to, what do I want? What is something that I would like to put on my plate and passionately give for it? What is something that in my life that no longer serve me? You know, I reflected when I moved here on the East Coast, there are the 4 seasons, beautiful. But if we look at the leaves trust that every leaf that falls, Allah will take care of it. And if we as human live life like that, when certain friendships, certain mindsets, certain attitude, certain habits, certain pattern that no longer serve us, and we know it's not serving us, rather than holding onto it because you don't want to be alone, you don't want to feel lonely, you don't want to feel sad, you don't want people to look a certain way or say certain things, when you really trust, like there's a deep level of reliance, this is no longer for me. A job, masjid board positions, all the things that we tell ourselves that we are, and we let them go, we allow freedom for something new to come in.
Yes, yeah.
That's where healing and growth will happen. But so long you're holding on to things that's stunting your growth, you won't be able to experience that freedom within you. And you go, okay, all right. You know, comes March, you'll see all the trees blooming, beautiful new leaves.
Yes.
Allow yourself to go through that natural progress every year, every so often. You know, sometimes we have so many clothes in our closet, we hold on to. When I lose weight, I'm going to wear this. When I go this, I'm going to let it go. Somebody else you can bring joy to somebody else by giving them up.
Yeah.
If we really focus on simple lifestyle, simple, you know, days, instead of like bombarding ourselves with so many things that on our schedule, where we stress ourselves, stress our kids, and we're doing it in the name of, we want to educate our kids, we want to make kids the kids family time and have fun. Like really simplify. Why do I do what I do? Ask yourself.
There was a time that I had a baby, I had a toddler, and so I couldn't, and we had moved somewhere, so I was like, you know what, this semester, I'm not putting my son in soccer. I'm not putting him in any sports because I'm not going to subject myself to all that stress. And somebody said, oh, what, you have to do that. They need something. Is it fair to them? And I was like, you know what's not fair to them? To have a angry mom. That's not fair to them.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of us, we feel like, oh, we have to. All the things, we never really have to do anything. We chose to do all those things. We don't have to. And instead of me thinking or feeling bad, I thought, okay, what else can I do instead that I could handle? So in just asking those questions to myself, I came up with a solution that wasn't stressing me out, that wasn't stressing them out. And they rather have a happy mom or a mom who's content, who's calm, than someone who's running around everywhere yelling at them.
What is the solution?
And for me, the solution was, I'm just going to take them to the park when the kids wake up from nap, when it's convenient for me. I'm going to take them to the park every day. We're going to go to the library. It's going to be very calm. And it's not going to be this organized sports where I have to be there at 4. I have to be there at a rush hour time where my son's waking up from a nap. I said, I don't have to do that right now. I can do it later when the kids get older. And we feel like we have to do it now. And so when I said to myself, I don't have to do it this year, I can do it next year, inshallah, or the year after, when it's more convenient for everyone in the family.
Trusting timing.
Yes.
And really respecting the responsibilities we have on our plate. Very excellent point. You know, in the very early stages of my kids developing, I was a teacher. Most perfect, ideal job for a mom, really.
Mm-hmm.
You're off when they're off, you go to school with them, you come home with them, and later on as a principal. But then as they're getting older, I said, what do I want to do? Where do I see my life going forward now that they're older? One in college, one is finishing high school. And really respecting where you're at, and you're not in a race with anyone. Like truly, there is the gift of giving your kids your presence and your emotions and your time and your energy in a very balanced way can go along the way for many, many, many years to come. You know, the point that you brought up about choosing the best for your family is a point that I see is a root cause of many issues among couples, which is being emotionally unavailable. We can be very busy family, many activities in many sports, and it's great. But ask ourselves, how are we emotionally? Are we connected? Most wives, they complain about their husband being avoidant, not romantic, not expressive, doesn't talk about feelings, doesn't want to go to therapy, not emotionally available. Where did it come from? How was that man raised? What was the quality of house that he grew up in? So make sure that we are not repeating the patterns that are hurting us now, and make sure that we're building awareness to stop pointing fingers and say, okay, wait a minute. What can I shift within me so I can see it around me? And how can I give my kids the best of me? Am I operating out of the best of me? Nobody's perfect. That's not the goal in life, to be perfect. Perfection is to God. But how can I give my kids the best of me? Let me see where I'm operating from. And the childhood uncommunicated and unprocessed feelings and trauma and sadness and stuckness, if we may say, shows up in us as parents.
Yeah.
When we are being there for our kids, some of the things that could come up is, why couldn't my parents do this? I'm able to do it. Why couldn't my mom love me? Why couldn't my dad tell me this? So we start, all our resentment will come to surface. So what sometimes either we disconnect from our kids or we overcompensate and we spoil them. So they end up being raised not in a very balanced way. So really evaluate yourself. Evaluate not yourself, Shanila. Anybody who's listening, evaluate yourself. Evaluate your relationship with Allah, with yourself, with your spouse, with your kids. Are you able to connect with them? Are you able to connect intimately? Are you able to just, without watching a movie, without cooking, without doing anything, are you able to carry on a conversation? Are the kids able to sit through it, or are they all over the place given their age? Are your conversations to your husbands and friends and children interrogation almost? Oh, how was your day? What did you do? What do you need? You know, all these questions that we ask. Or is it a flowing type of a conversation where it's give and take, where the other person feels safe in our space, not judged, able to open up? When our kids are not able to reach us, they will reach their friends. When our kids are not able to reach us, they'll make friends with their their friends' parents. When our kids cannot reach us, when our kids cannot reach us, they will reach out to our sisters and brothers. And there's a piece of us that will become jealous. How come you don't come to me? How come you didn't tell me? So building self-awareness, I mean, alhamdulillah that they are surrounded by individuals who can support them. But when you were asking, where do we start with us. How are we? Are we a safe person emotionally? Do we judge? Because the way we are to others is the way we are to ourselves. Sometimes when we don't process certain sadness or emotional stuckness that we had from childhood, what we do, we become a bit cold. And what's between us and that flowing river within us is forgiveness and acceptance. And at
So when you
times,
say Would you say like other people who are not forgiving, a lot of times they're not forgiving to themselves even?
Um, Not the rule, but it could be.
Mhm.
I mean, I really don't like to generalize because every case is different. But most of the time, if a person is not able to give me something, most of the time they're not able to give it to themselves. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in for me to say, wait a minute, they're not even giving it to themselves.
Mhm.
Why am I holding a grudge?
Mhm.
It puts
Yeah,
things in perspective for us, and it makes us look at things from a wider lens rather than being stuck in, I want
exactly.
them to forgive, I want them to,
Yeah. Mhm.
apologize.
Mhm. Someone's asking, what do we do with a spouse who's going through their own trauma and affecting our parenting technique?
They're going through their own trauma, like they're facing it, or it's being
Yeah, I think
displayed.
who probably had trauma and are going through their own journey, I guess.
So when our spouses are going through it and they're going through their journey, I hope they're seeking out professional support. We can do
Mhm.
couple therapy. We can be there for them and hold space with them. We can have boundaries within our family until they feel better. For
Mhm.
example, if dealing with the kids at this time is not something that they can do,
Yeah.
maybe we can put boundaries in the things that they can do and at the time that they're spending with the kids. But if we are talking about their trauma is spilling over where there is abuse or domestic violence or yelling and screaming, we need to shield our kids. We need to really distance ourselves physically until they get better. We need
I
to
think so. They were
remove the
saying that
kids.
the spouse is doing has they're doing therapy, but the
Okay, good.
toxic environment is affecting me and the kids.
If it's a possibility to take a break, maybe go spend time at your parents, distance yourself. Maybe they would go and be at their parents for a while, but definitely that will affect the kids. At the end of the day, we have a responsibility, and it's an amana for us to make sure that the kids are thriving. I get that they're going through therapy, and that's a process, but also we need to have boundaries that will protect the kids.
I know one of the questions that I asked my viewers, and someone's asking here. So how do we heal? And yeah, how do we set forth? And I think you're gonna definitely talk about this, but I think the way we were raised in certain cultures, we really do need to see a professional. Like that's even if it's just start, you don't have to think like, okay, now I'm going to be in therapy for a year. Just go once, just
Yes,
go,
just
just
go.
start.
Just very good. Take the first step. How do we heal? We need to want to heal. The first thing is choosing it. You need to choose to heal. Just like when somebody wants to start exercising, I can go get the clothes and get the membership at the gym and get an even partner to go to the gym, but I could be sitting outside of the gym. I need to want to go to the gym and work on myself. I need to want to heal because healing involves uncomfortableness. Sometimes therapy is messy. Some sessions will leave you crying, some sessions will leave you feeling uplifted. It's a process that we go through. And most people, when they start feeling the heat of therapy, they stop coming. They completely drop it. And because they don't want to relive certain things. Not every therapy modality you need to relive certain things, but you need to see how it's affecting you now. So developing a relationship with a professional for you to be guided differently, not that you don't know what you're doing, you have the tools, but you need to build more on them. Reading is good. Surrounding yourself with people who are also working on themselves is good. Friendship, good, intimate, God-centered friendships that they're balanced, they're caring, they're healthy, can heal a lot of our brokenness from childhood. Getting yourself busy with something that you would like to do that you've been putting off for a while, walking, exercising, an art class, learning a language, going back to get a degree, that will help with your self-esteem and confidence. So there are many steps, but in the first one, you need to choose it. That's the first step to healing.
And for me, I felt like all of that, as well as my connection to Allah, really helped me. And then I remember reading something and it said, Allah made you worthy. And I started crying.
Mhm.
And even now I get emotional because that was like epiphany, like Allah made me worthy. I'm worthy of everything.
Mhm.
And I had realized that that was one of the issues, is that my worthiness.
Mhm.
You know, I was only worthy if I got amazing grades, or I did this, or I did that. But you know what? Besides that, Allah made me worthy. Allah
Mhm.
made us all worthy.
That's very
And
true.
connecting with Allah helped me see like that Allah created me in the most perfect form, in
Mhm.
the most perfect way. And it's almost a disservice if I don't go get help and reach my full potential, you know? So, and he created everything for us,
Mhm.
even
Absolutely.
therapists, even,
That's
you
true.
know, our kids who may trigger us, but they show us a way to ourselves.
Very true. If we're willing to look.
Yes.
Now, our relationship with Allah is what will shift everything. When we make the dua, Ya muqallib al-qulub, or the turner of the heart, turn my heart. So what you
Yes.
used to face, you're no longer facing and you're walking away from it. You'll find yourself, the taste in people and things will shift. You'll find your heart not attached to things you used to be attached to, including grudges and anger and sadness and negativity and gossip.
Mhm.
You'll see yourself feeling lighter. Your quality of sleep will be different because you're relying on the source of infinity, the unconditional love, the unconditional mending of any brokenness. We cannot, as spiritual beings, we all are made up of different beings. We have the emotional beings, the mental being, psychological being, biological being. We have the spiritual being. And as Muslims, as spiritual being, we need to nurture that beyond the walls of what we learned from our parents. It's limited. Most of us learned Islam through culture. We get to unlayer that and learn Islam through what Allah told us to do, to really carve out time to learn about our deen and to implement that in ourselves, in our children, in our homes. You will find a new understanding to balance. Another way that we can heal is through tahajjud. Tahajjud, my brothers and sisters, will unlock the gems of this world.
Yeah.
There is there When you wake up in the middle of the night and you give up your sleep and you're just you and Allah alone. And if that is not sensed on weekly basis, monthly basis, you will feel empty. You will be left empty. That's how Allah created this world. He created this world for our spiritual being not to be attached to it. And without tahajjud, we will feel stuck. We will feel this anxiousness inside of us. There is a level of anxiety and depression in this world that Allah put in us. That's how He designed it, because He wants us to come to Him. Inni qareeb, I am near. But if we're not taking the steps towards Him, my friends, everything will be tangled up. His servants will break us. We need to go to Him. Things happened in the past, and as I always say in my talks, some parents did their job and they did their job well, and some parents didn't. Some parents completely dropped the ball. Some parents negated the rights of their children, and their children are forever left dealing with it. At one point, we need to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah as adults. It's not enough to be born in it, we need to own it. At one point, we need to forgive our past and not dwell in it and keep going. At one point, we need to gain our mental ruminating thoughts where we are just all over the place thinking of what if, and we're always in the future, and we need to be in the present.
Yes.
At one point, we need to own our mental wellness and stop pointing fingers. That does not negate that what happened before was perhaps horrible. Somebody went through really horrible upbringing and childhood and experiences, and may Allah heal you completely. But at one point, we need to come home to ourselves. Say, enough is enough. I've given too much energy, too much emotions. I've bled everywhere. I want to be whole on my own. I've been a people pleaser. I've led life, through anxiety-driven kind of a lifestyle. I'm barely able to lean on people. I don't have anybody around me who I truly can trust, and I'm tired of it. Because Allah did not create us to live life alone. He wants us to live life to learn from each other, to lean on each other,
Yes.
and to overcome. He wants us to overcome.
I love everything that you said. SubhanAllah, it's really deep work. And again, I feel like if we don't make space for that, if we're not reflective, if we're not just filling our own cup in different ways, then how can we give to others?
That's true.
And if we do give to others, it's not going to be how we really, or maybe our intentions are not really felt, but because we want to do it with love, but we can't. And when we get stuck, these are all the things to do. And and I feel like sometimes people think that I'm the only one going through this. And really, all of us are going through something, all of us. Just because we don't post it online, we don't talk about it, it doesn't mean that we're experiencing all of that.
That's very true.
And one question that somebody asked earlier, and we can maybe finish it up with that, was that how does birth order affect our, like if an oldest child, how is he experiencing something different than the third or fourth?
So let's take an example of divorce. If we have the first child will make it's their duty to keep the family together. They'll do everything in their power to keep the family together. The middle child will cave in usually and don't say anything, and they will internalize everything. And they will just be like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? The baby will develop feelings of feeling neglected, feeling like I couldn't keep them together. It's not, I'm the baby who's going to take care of me. So the different birth order, it manifests differently. They internalize the trauma differently, and they make up messages and ideas and stories about it differently. Oh, my parents got divorced, I couldn't keep them together. I tried my best. And the stories they start telling themselves, they feel like this was their job. It was their fault. They needed to do something. The birth order is, especially in a cultural household, if we have the eldest boy, we expect to take over the family business, the responsibility, take care of it. And we put on too much responsibility on them. By the time they get married, they don't do anything. So we have the wife that says, oh my God, I have to end up taking care of his entire family, because he was too busy or too involved or too burdened for so long that he ended up putting it on somebody else's plate. Or his responsibilities ends up burdening her. So knowing your birth order, how it shows up with you and how you coped with it, what are the messages that you've gotten over the years, is really important for you to understand how you operate as an adult and how you show up for your spouse and for your kids and your expectations of your kids. So if you are a parent who was the firstborn, perhaps you have perfectionist tendencies. Perhaps you are the type that the type A personality and go and go. Maybe your kids are not like that, and you try so hard to make them, and there'll be a clash. So you need to really understand yourself more. Most of the time I hear that, oh, this is a Western psychology, Western ideology. This is not about Muslims. This is not. Some of it is. I have to say, as a person who went through a program, some of it is. And spirituality is not really part of any program in a Western academia. That's where Islamic psychology comes in. That's where your study to Islam comes in. You take the best of this study, this field, and you implement Islam in it. So there are two things I wanted to highlight. When we go through some trauma growing up, there is the conflicting idea that we have to be obedient to parents, but the parents abused us and hurt us, and they're still abusing us, and they're still violent, and they're still negative. I always reflect on the story of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he called his dad to the oneness of Allah over and over and over. He was thrown in a live fire.
Yes.
And on his way out of town, meaning he left, he distanced himself, he drew a boundary with his own father. He still called him Ya Abati with endearment. He did not leave with throwing a tantrum. It is very important, my friends, when we put boundaries, they're not walls. Those people might have hurt you, but the way you leave will help you heal. if you leave with, oh my God, I'm going to cut him off, I'm
Mhm.
angry, I'm pissed
Yeah.
off, that energy will carry through inside of you. You'll distance yourself, you'll get the job done,
Mhm.
but it's how we distance ourselves.
Yeah.
We can put boundaries and say, you know what, this is not for me. From truly knowing what's good for you and
Mhm.
how it's affecting your spirituality. You distance yourself, you move away, you check on them, you make dua for them. So don't get confused with, I have to put up with abuse and
Yes.
disrespect and
Yeah.
all of that. And oh, I have to be obedience to Allah. We have boundaries.
Mhm.
We have boundaries that will make life easier. Go ahead.
And the last question before we end, and I know we've gone over time and you have to leave,
No,
and I do
it's
too.
okay.
How do we know that we've healed?
How do we know that we healed? You know, the ultimate goal is not to heal fully. Nothing is perfect, right?
You're in that
If
journey, right? You're
you are
always
on that
becoming
journey,
better.
you're open to it, you're seeing that your quality of friendship is different, the way you express yourself is different, the way you're able to calm yourself is different, the way that you react is different.
Mhm.
The choices in spouses, let's say you are in a time where you want to get remarried, or perhaps you are choosing a spouse, or your relationship with your in-laws, or things are shifting.
Yes.
You're finding yourself that you're no longer fixated and focused on points that no longer served you before.
Those are great. Those are wonderful. And, you know, how can we work with you if anybody wants to work with you? Can you tell us that? And then where we can find you? And everybody, if you aren't following her, please follow Sister Iman. And I love the lives that you did earlier, and you have to do them more.
Alhamdulillah,
And
inshallah. If there's
so where can we
anything that
find
I
you?
could help and support with, I would love to. They could write me on therapywithiman@gmail.com. They can
Okay.
also contact me via Instagram, and inshallah we will see if I'm able to take them, or I could refer them to different Muslim therapists. We do have a network and a link that they could look up. But don't suffer in silence, my friend.
Yes.
Don't sit on it. And let's break cultural boundaries of, you know, what are people going to say about us? You are the one who's suffering. It's your quality of life. It's your relationship and responsibility. It's the haqq that your body, the rights that your body has upon you. I know you have to go.
Yeah, that's my cue when your kids write a note to you.
Alhamdulillah. Barakallah feekum.
Jazakallah khair. I loved having you, and let's have more talks like this, because I think we all really need it.
Inshallah.
And it can push us to actually take the actions that we really need to take. Inshallah.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Jazakallah khair.
Wa iyaakum. Assalamu alaikum.